Hi, this is Brass Check, and I was looking over our website for the 1997 election fraud in San Francisco, and I realized it's so vast that it would be really hard for someone to wrap their minds around in anything less than an hour or two. So let me give you the key points of what happened. First of all, this happened in San Francisco, California, which at that time had as mayor Willie Brown. And one of the things, I mean, they did so many amazing things, but let me list a few of them. One of the things first of all, the issue was, should we give $250 million, half a billion with interest, tax-free and responsibility-free to the DeBartolo crime family so that they could build a new football stadium for themselves. They're the owners of the 49ers. And even though San Francisco is filled with wild and woolly people, it actually has a lot of homeowners. If you actually look out in the western parts of the city, in the Richmond district and Sunset, a lot of places, Excelsior, Bayview, Hunters Point, a lot of property owning people. They own their homes, and none of them were really in a mood to give the DeBartolos free money. And the so-called progressive people really didn't care one way or another, but Willie Brown did, and of course so did DeBartolo. So they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on the campaign to con San Franciscans into giving the DeBartolos free money. All right, so pre-election, the mayor was campaigning for the stadium bond, which is illegal. He was allowing city employees to campaign for the stadium bond, which is illegal. He brought in people to scour the election records to see voting patterns so that they could close precincts. Unannounced, by the way. So you woke up, you've been voting at the same place your whole life, and you head down to the church or the YMCA or wherever to vote, and lo and behold, your voting place is closed and nobody's telling you where you can go. Now, interestingly enough, they only closed precincts in places that were likely to vote against the bond. Then they had cute little things like guys hanging out at the voting precincts wearing 49er jerseys. Big guys, mean-looking guys. People were asked, "Who are you voting for?" Right within 100 feet of the voting booth. The ballot was really written in a really screwy way. But anyway, all the polls said that this thing was going to lose by 10% for the reasons I gave you. There's no reason to give billionaires hundreds of millions of dollars, and it was preposterous. So it was down by 10%. So the way San Francisco votes is the ballot boxes come in waves, I think 9 separate waves, and then they're counted and the results are announced. So wave 1 came in and it was losing, just like everybody expected. Wave 2 of the boxes came in and suddenly it's gaining. Okay, whatever, statistics. Wave 3 came in, it's gaining some more. Well, this is odd. Wave 4, and so on and so forth. So now it's gotten all 8 of the 9 boxes have arrived. Waves of boxes have arrived and have been counted, and it's lost. It's behind, but it's quite close. It's quite close. Guess what? That 9th wave of boxes got lost in transit. Now, San Francisco is only 49 square miles. That's why it's just a coincidence, the 49ers, 49 square miles and so on. So you can literally walk from one end of town to another. It'd be a walk, but it's not an insurmountable walk. There was no particularly bad traffic that night. They claimed that it was raining and that was the problem. It was drizzling occasionally. That was not an issue. So they had all kinds of baloney reasons for why the ballot boxes, the last group of ballot boxes showed up. That last group of ballot boxes was from Bayview, Hunters Point, and another neighborhood. You'll have to read the website. It has been 23 years since I did it, and I haven't been in San Francisco in over a decade, 20 years. And lo and behold, when they counted the ballot. Here's the punchline. When they counted the ballots in those boxes, they just happened to be 90% for the stadium bond. Statistically insane. Also, they came from a neighborhood that was actually going to be destroyed by the building of the stadium. They were going to have to widen the roads. They were going to really cause a lot of life quality of life problems for the people that lived in that particular neighborhood, and they were not going to get anything out of it. I mean, Brown and his fellow criminals were strong-arming local groups and giving them money, and there was all kinds of crazy things too. But there was literally a secret polling place opened up in public housing. Only people who were for the stadium were told about it. I kid you not, it's on the website. It's all documented. I am not making this up. So if you were for the bond, giving the money away, you would have been notified that this polling place was open up in public housing. But nobody else would have. The guy who was responsible for San Francisco's public housing later was indicted for stealing $18 million from another public housing group that he worked for, I think, in Detroit. I don't know whatever happened to him. Also, DeBartolo himself was indicted and convicted of bribery. He was caught giving a suitcase with $300,000 or $400,000 in it, cash, to a former Louisiana governor in exchange for that guy distributing it so he could get a gambling license on a riverboat in Louisiana. So that guy ended up getting caught. So anyway, these ballot boxes just disappeared until they had the correct number of ballots in them. All right. All this, by the way, I'm not, this is not like a conspiracy theory. This was all in the news. And by the way, local news, they were all for the stadium. Therefore, they had nothing to say about the problem. They thought it was a great idea, and that anybody that asked any questions was a malcontent. It turns out 15,000 San Franciscans signed a petition asking that a recount and an investigation into that vote be conducted. That's enough to put it on a they had this thing in California, I can't think of the name of it, initiative, right? You could basically put anything on the ballot if you could get enough people to sign. Well, 15,000 people signed. That's how many we needed. It went to a judge, and the judge said, we're not going to put this on the ballot. What other cute things happened? So we went and tried to hire an election attorney, an attorney with experience in election. Well, happened that the DeBartolos had hired every single election attorney in the San Francisco Bay Area. Just gave them some money, and once you hire an attorney, that attorney can't work for anybody else. So that was cute. We ended up using an attorney from Sacramento. The city attorney did an investigation into it. Of course, he was a huge advocate for the stadium bond. So his investigation lasted 24 hours. But anyway, it gets even cuter. The people, coincidentally, who were handling the ballots that night, who were transporting, because it's a mechanical thing. The ballots have to be put in boxes and then taken, sealed, hopefully, and then taken to the counting place in City Hall. It turned out that the nonprofit that Willie Brown and company decided to hire to handle that task was a group of, and I have nothing against former incarcerated people. You do your crime, you do your time, fresh start. So assuming it wasn't some ghastly injury to a human being, then maybe you need a longer sentence. But they were basically, guys that had been doing drug dealing and, gang kind of stuff and who knows what else, but felons. I mean, basically, felons. People that I think in some parts of the country aren't even allowed to vote. But somehow these guys, whose organization set up to help them, reasonable, and entirely dependent on city money, i.e. Willie Brown money, they were the ones that handled the ballot boxes. So the ballot, as I said, the last wave of ballot boxes was delayed for a couple of hours. Nobody knew where they were. It was a mystery. And then they showed up and they just happened to be 90% for the stadium bond. And the stadium bond, after being behind 10% in all the polls and in several of the initial counts, won by, I think it was 50.01%. It was a simple majority, which is all they required. As soon as that was announced, Willie Brown grabbed some pom-poms and jumped up on a table and started dancing. And of course, that's what the photographers, the great news photographers from the great San Francisco Chronicle and the great San Francisco Examiner photographed, and that's what was on the cover of the newspaper. A lot of people were crying foul immediately, and the newspapers both came out and said, we don't see any problem at all. And they continued to ignore the issue, though they, bit by bit, they had to drip out the facts, but they dripped them out slow. But all that information was captured. It's all on a website. There was also the issue of people wanting to, be poll observers, experienced people, by the way, not, people that just got a notion in their head they wanted to be a poll observer. And they were also kept, so far away from the counting process they couldn't see what was going on. One of the executives, county executives who was running the vote was videotaped, was clearly drunk off her ass on election night. It just went on and on and on and on. And that's, San Francisco is a major American city, and so you have to multiply that level of criminality by all the big cities. And we documented it all. 1997, was there for anybody to research. And there's been zero interest in that information from the left, from the right, from the conservatives, from the liberals, from the progressives, from the crusading independent journalists. Nobody wants to look at the fact that the actual mechanics of vote counting in many parts of this country is run as a criminal enterprise. It was true in 1997. It may well be true in 2020. Whether you like Trump or loathe Trump, he is sometimes right. And this whole insanity of changing the way people vote, we let people go to Walmart with a mask. Why couldn't they, go and vote with a mask? But no, it had to change. So this thing was wired to fail. He did speak up early. He was against it. I think he was right to be against it because of the chicanery that becomes possible when you allow a change in an unregulated, ad hoc, flying by the seat of the pants change of procedure. I mean, you're going to have problems. It's inevitable, and so we are having the problems. But as you watch all the news reports and everything, what you will never hear, you'll hear it from the Trump side, and it will sound like sour grapes, but they're actually right. There is and it does happen to be the cities run by Democratic politicians. Not that the Republicans can't do fraud. I mean, it's really funny to see Karl Rove come out and talk about, election fraud. I mean, they had somewhere on Brass Check. You'll have to look because we've been covering election fraud forever in a very detailed way, and I think more so than any news outlet in America, which is kind of pathetic since we're not really a news outlet. We're just a guy with a website. But we have a lot of detailed information on the election frauds that the Republicans ran under Karl Rove that got that Bush elected twice. There was fraud in Florida, I think, the first time, and there was certainly fraud in Ohio the second time. And if everybody remembers, you might not, but the guy that handled all the electronic vote counting for Ohio died in a plane crash when he was about to be investigated and interrogated about how that crazy computer system he set up actually worked. Anyway, that's Brass Check, and enjoy the circus because you're paying for it. We might as well have some fun.